Live from Houston, Texas, the humidity capital of the world, it's time for Money for Lunch, where we feed your brain and your business with supersized portions of business and financial news. Now your host, Bert Martinez.
Woo! Hey guys, we have a fantastic show lined up for you today. One of our contributors, one of our newest contributors, Vicki White, is on the show today. She is a top producing agent in the Dallas, Texas areas. We're going to be talking about you and your real estate with her. Exciting opportunity to hear about what's happening in the real estate market with Vicki White. So just a fantastic show lined up. Let's get it cranking. Again, our first guest, Vicki White. She is one of the top producing agents in the Dallas area. She has a boutique agency called Vicki White Homes that is a part of the Dallas City Center Realtors. She was also named Best Realtor in 2012 by T Magazine and has also been chosen by Dallas Morning News in the past as Best Realtor. I'm excited to have her as a regular contributor here. Vicki White, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Hi, Bert.
How are you?
I'm doing just great.
Excellent. Now I understand you just got back from
Jamaica. Yes, I went to Jamaica for Thanksgiving and got home on Sunday. My assistant was working, so I put my suitcase and went down and went right back to work. So it was a nice break, though.
Well, excellent. Hey, you know what? Here's what I want to do, and I'm going to kind of ad-lib with here a little bit. But we interviewed Donald Trump a while back, and I want to play an excerpt from that interview and get your feedback as to what he says.
Sure.
Well, the good news is there's no money around, so you're not going to have a lot of overbuilding like you do in the housing industry. You know, they overbuilt 2 years ago, and now they're sort of getting rid, and you can make lots of good deals. If you have money today, you can make lots of good deals. The fact is, this is a great time to go buy a house, maybe even wait 3 or 4 more months. But
all right. So what do you think? Are the home values in Dallas, is it now a good time to buy a house?
You know what? I don't think there's going to be a better time for a long time. I think now is the best time. I mean, as time goes on, we are in the midst of what we call, in the midst of a recovery. We've not rebounded,
right.
but prices are beginning to go up. I put a lot of stock in the Case Shiller. He's a kind of a leading indicator of market values, and we have had consistent rise in values. The news would have you think we are rebounded. We're still 30% less than we were back in the peak of 2007, but there are still deals out there. There's, it's a great time to buy. I mean, I keep telling people that once you hit November, it's going to die. We're going to be slow until after Christmas, and we are as busy as we've been any month this year. So, yeah,
wow.
It's a good time to buy, and values are beginning to tick up a little bit. It's going to be a while.
Great. Now, let me ask you this. I keep hearing in the news that home values are up 3 to 4%. So my question is, are buyers willing to pay higher prices now?
Buyers, I guguess, always have wanted a deal. I mean, that's the first thing they say when we sit down to discuss their criteria. And they know the deals are still out there because there have been people that have been on the market for a long time. The inventory is lower than it has been in a while, so that's helping people get a little bit more for their houses. But no, buyers still are not willing to overpay. And understanding what market value is, very, very few buyers are willing to pay more than market value. And, and there's still, a lot out there that's a great buy, and I'm working with buyers and sellers right now.
Gotcha. Now, let me ask you this. How are appraisals from lenders affecting home values today?
Well, that's the critical element in any transaction right now. I mean, it's never been more appraisers have never had such demands made of them. They have a formula they go by. The house has to appraise. If you are, when I go in to talk to somebody to sell, and help them come up with their value of their home, I always tell them, don't look at the active listings. I mean, if I have $100,000 house and I want to sell it for $1 million, there's no law that says I can't list it at $1 million. So don't look at what's on the market. That's what people want. What the appraisers look at are the solds, and it's happening all the time. If somebody happens to be above market value and are one of the highest houses in the neighborhood, and they do get a willing buyer, that buyer is going to get a loan more than likely. In 99% of the cases, it's not going to be cash. And if the appraiser does not appraise it for that price, two things can happen. The buyer will terminate, or the seller has to come down to the price that it appraised. So it's very few, even cash buyers. Most people who have cash don't have cash by making foolish business decisions. So if they're a cash buyer, they're still going to have an appraisal done, and not many people are willing to pay more than the appraised price, and that's happening every day.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you this. Here you are. You're a top-producing realtor. Is part of your job to educate the seller about their price to help determine the best price to sell?
That's the most important job of any realtor across the board. I mean, that's the most important job you have, is to go in and sit down with a seller and educate them about the market. I've found that in almost 100% of the cases, when I go into a home, the seller has a preconceived value in their head for their house. Most of the time, that seller bases their value on what they paid for the house, what they've done to improve it, and then they roll in what they think the closing costs are going to be, and that's what they think the house should sell for. What they paid, what they did to improve, and covering their closing costs. You know, people in Texas, and I don't know if this is a national figure, but they stay in a house 5 to 7 years. So with 2007 being the peak of the market as far as high values, those people are now wanting to sell. Their houses, their families have either grown and they need a bigger house, or their kids have moved away and they need a smaller house, and they bought at the peak of the market, and we're still 30% down from that time. So when they start adding up all they've spent and all they've done, and that's the value they want, that's irrelevant to market value. And to make them understand, I do hours of research before a listing presentation. I'll go in and look at the comps for that subdivision, or maybe that school district, or maybe I'll even do a mile or two radius from the home, and I look at the solds, and I say, this is what we have to look at to determine your value. You don't get to pull a number out of the sky because that's what you need.
Right. And I think, people sometimes are just so confused about, the realities of selling a house. I think last time you and I spoke, you said that a lot of times people lose a little bit of money when they sell a house.
Oh, they do. And that if they bought in that time frame, it was just such a relief to work with someone recently who had a very high-end property. He had built that property that was just incredible, and I think his hard costs on that house were about $1.7 million, and he knew. He knew that he built that at the peak of the market when everything was high. He paid more for the lot than they're going for today. He, really did an exquisite job, but he knew that right off the bat he had to even ask a couple $100,000 less than what he paid in 2007, and then he was smart enough to know, if I want out of this house, if I want to make this necessary move, I've got to be negotiable even on that. So he took, maybe $250,000 loss because he understood the market. And it's kind of like the stock market. If you buy stock at $100 a share, and 5 years later you go to your stockbroker and say, I want to sell that stock, and they say, okay, fine, it's now $50 a share. You can't go, wait a minute, no, I paid $100. That's what I want. I need to get my $100 back a share. You don't get that. Well, the market value is what it is.
Right. You know what, and I think that's a great analogy, really paints the picture vividly, because not only do you lose money, but in some cases you don't get to even cover the cost of the commissions.
No. Now, sometimes you do, but the best thing you can do is price it appropriately. I've done several listing presentations this week, and I archive, like if there's a house that started out at $590 and the average in that neighborhood's $525, that house has been on the market a year or a year and a half, I'll look at the archive where you can see when it was listed. 2 months later, it goes down to $580. 2 months later, it goes down to $570. 2 months later, it goes down to $550. 2 months later, it goes down to $525, and boom, it gets sold because it hits market value. And there's a saying in this industry, the market will speak. And if you put your house on the market and you're the highest price house in the neighborhood, you might be absolutely deserving of being the highest price house in the neighborhood, but very few people are out there to buy the highest price house in the neighborhood. So if you don't get showings, it's because the market's telling you the buyer's not there for that price range house in that neighborhood. And until you hit the market value, you're just going to go through all the emotional turmoil of reductions and getting your house ready to show and not having it show. And it's not fun having your house on the market. And it's, but if you price it correctly in the beginning, I tell you, I've had more multiple offer situations in the last 2 months than ever in my career. And we're selling houses for more than asking price because they start low enough and realistic enough to get that buyer in there.
I love it. You know, and it always boggles my mind. You hire a professional, and then you fight with that professional instead of listening. Right.
Yes, I mean it's but you know I understand it's an emotional thing. People do.
It is.
People who don't work in this business, they don't really they drive around and they look at all the houses that are for sale, and they say, okay, this is all the prices of the houses on the market right now, so this is where we should be. But what they don't really study is how long those houses have been there and not sold, and how many reductions they've had, and they need to focus on what's sold. And that's what our business is to know how to. We don't make up the numbers. We just interpret them. You know, and
I love that.
That's what our job is to interpret them and show it to them several different ways, and then in the end, you know, the seller will make the final decision, and frankly, a realtor will decide if it's something they should take. You know, if it's substantially more, I spend an awful lot of money. I do a lot of marketing. That's kind of our specialty at Vicki White Homes is heavy-duty marketing, and that's expensive. So if I spend, you know, $500 the first week it's on the market marketing your house, but you're way overpriced, you know, I may not ever have a way of recouping my investment. And, you know, $500 is just the beginning. I mean, you know, ads and e-blasts and, you know, all the things I do to
all that other
market
stuff,
house.
sure.
Yeah. So
that's right. People forget
time.
that you guys get a commission only after the property sells.
Only after the property sells. And, you know, speaking of that commission, you know, I always make people understand, too, when I sit down with them, they have, as a rule, the general public thinks that the real estate realtor that they hire is going to walk away with 6%. And that is so inaccurate. The odds with 15,000 agents in Dallas, the odds of the listing agent actually being the buyer's agent as well are slim. So you're going to give 3% immediate. If it's a 6% commission, 3% is going to go to the buyer's agent and 3% to the seller's agent. Well, that buyer's agent is going to have to split that commission with their broker. I'm going to have to split my commission with the broker. But guess what? 100% of the marketing comes out of my portion of the 3%. So,
wow.
You know, I'm not making 6%. I'm making a portion of 6% minus my expenses. But we do a lot of volume, so the money I spend only gets me more business. So what I lose in spending a lot of money marketing, I make back in volume of listings and sales.
Absolutely, and that's why you're one of the top experts in the Dallas area. Vicki, we're out of time. Guys, if you have questions, check out Vicki at VickiWhiteHomes.com. Vicki, it was always a pleasure to have you here. Look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you, Bert. I enjoyed it. You have a great day.
All righty.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tune in Monday through Friday here on Money for Lunch. And check out our website at moneyforlunch.com.